and it's hellishly expensive. I was born in the cadet hospital. And my father is an all-American football player, graduate of West Point, also coach. And my mother wanted to stay. It was a Saturday. She wanted to stay and have me in the cadet hospital. The future Surgeon General of the Army, Major Snyder, cursed her up and down. She was the daughter of the Senator Gore, and you couldn't tell her too much that she didn't already know and was going to act upon. She was very strong-willed, so she retreated to the cadet hospital. Now, cadets have many faults, and God knows they break lots of bones, but they just don't have babies. Until recently. And that's the Marine Corps. They're having children all the time, and their husbands murder them. We wouldn't have done very well at Iwo Jima with a bisexual cast. And Iwo Jima was what convinced me that the military caste don't love us. That was the most horrible. 70% of the boys I went to school with at St. Albans in Washington, and I went to Exeter in New Hampshire, about 70% were killed due to bad generalship. It was always, when you lose the first frontal assault, call another one. And the kids were very brave. They didn't know how to say no. So they would charge and then die. And one of the reasons that we are suffering from the worst government that we've ever had in 300 years is too many of us got killed. The brightest boys in every class that I took, exception of myself, they got their bullet and they bought the farm. And if you're 18, that is not the age you want to start to be a farmer. No, it was a bad time for us. And all these fools, talking about, oh, the greatest generation that ever lived. We sure as hell weren't that. We're the most sardonic. I spent 3 years in the Army, and I never heard a patriotic word from anybody. That's why I went to the movies a generation later. My God, we all said, oh, I love my country. Who the hell sent us here? And they hated the generals, they hated the command, and they ended up by hating Mr. Roosevelt, who was the only good president we've had since Lincoln.
Gore is willing to answer questions, and if you would write them out, and the monitors or what we have them. Just read them off.
Read away, read away.
You seem to be following the 10 steps Naomi Wolf outlines as a movement toward a fascist state. What can be done to save our Republican form of government?
I would all honor due to Naomi. I would rather it's a misnomer of fascism. It's a name unknown to us, basically. We hear about it, but it's not relevant to our affairs and to our politics. Totalitarian would be a better word. Imperialistic is an even better word. We're both imperial and totalitarian. And if we have come to that, it's due to we've reached a level of population, a level of prosperity, that somehow or other it's the next step. And it seems so easy from the War of 1846, which gave us this whole state. A war provoked by the United States against Mexico, a very weak power. General Grant, not thought of as a great philosopher, but I certainly think of him as one. He was a young hero at the Battle of Veracruz. He was the first lieutenant just out of West Point. And in reflecting when he came to write his memoirs, he said, you know, he said, I have always felt that nations, like individuals, must suffer for their faults and for their misdeeds. And he said, now that I'm old, I believe that the Mexican War was the judgment of God upon the United States for attacking a weaker navy, a weaker nation. And I believe we paid with the bloodiest war in history. This is grand. But we don't get many grants. We're apt to get fools.
The question seems to be very political for obvious reasons. We're right before this incredibly important election. Which political leader from the last half century would you trust to lead the USA in the next decade?
Well, one thing to be aware of is, though, I mean, you know, what we call our media is nothing but propaganda. It's to keep us paying taxes, being obedient to them who control it, believing what they want us to believe. Listening to this poor woman talk to the senator from Arizona a night or two ago. Oh, she said, I'm against Obama. And you know, every now and then he remembers that he graduated from Annapolis as an officer and a gentleman. It takes him a long time to pick up on number 2, but sometimes he does. And he picked up on number 2. And he said, well, why? You know, don't you like him? Don't you? I just don't feel safe with him. So why don't you? He's an Arab. Even Daddy Warbucks was surprised at that. I always read Little Orphan Annie when I was a kid because I liked to fill in the eyes. You get some wonderful effects. Next time you see a picture of the senator from Arizona, you might get some wonderful effects. It might tempt him to go into surgery. And she went on, and it was everything that she had heard about from people who had read the press. Not very useful. So we bellow away about the Fifth Amendment, this and that. Of course, I'm all for the Fifth Amendment, but it can be misused. Anytime an owner of a paper. That's why all of us who write were so horrified when the Australian was allowed to buy the Wall Street Journal. Not a magnificent paper, to say the least, nor even an honest one, but they write about money. They have to be accurate. That's the only thing they care about is money. So they're going to be very good on the subject of money. That's why I read it. They're not going to exaggerate the sales price of ITT that morning. They've got to tell it like it is. So sometimes you can use their demerits to our advantage.
You know, one question related to what you're saying. Why is Sarah Palin so popular with the far right? And can I add something to that? And why is she so popular with some people not on the far right?
I never met one of those. I think it's a new style for America. I think there's a need out there. I mean, American women are a bit too chic. The native ones. And she's a Piltdown woman. She's from prehistory. And it's a relief, you know. I mean, she isn't worried about hair in the nostrils or things like that. Let it grow, she yells. Let it grow.